That's why pastors who don't want to be straightforward are getting away with things that are not scriptural. Christians are very lazy. If a pastor knows that you read your Bible diligently, he will be careful in what he says. The tithe was always from food. Anybody that sees this and says otherwise is very dishonest. Pay attention. Someone says, well, the reason why it's like that is because the occupation of the Jews was farming. So since they were farmers, that is why they were to bring food. If they were doctors, lawyers, they would have asked them to bring money. Fraud. They were not all farmers. Let's see whether farming was the Adamic profession. Genesis 40 verse 2. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. So they were bakers and they were butlers. They were not farmers. Jeremiah 37:21. Then Zedekiah the king commanded that they should commit Jeremiah into the court of the prison, and that they should give him daily a piece of bread out of the baker's street, until all the bread in the city were spent. So they were bakers among the Jews. 1 Samuel 8:13. And he will take your daughters to be confectionaries and to be cooks and to be bakers. So they were confectionaries, they were cooks, and they were bakers. They were not all farmers. Yet the tithe was farm produce. Deuteronomy 15:2. And this is the manner of the release. Every creditor that lendeth aught unto his neighbor shall release it. He shall not exact it of his neighbor or of his brother, because it is called the Lord's release. These were bankers, people that lend money. Then some people will say, listen everybody, some pastors will say the reason why the tithe is food was because there was no money at that time. So people were asked to give food. But today, since there's money, instead of food, bring money. Fraud. Let me prove to you that there was money before the tithe. Are you ready? Because we're going to look at scriptures now. In Genesis alone, the word money was used 32 times. In the book of Genesis alone, the word money was used 32 times. You know, the first time we read about the tithe under the law is Leviticus. But in Genesis, they were already using money, and the word was used 32 times. Now, before Leviticus 27, the word money was used 48 times. In Genesis, the word money was used 32 times. When the law was given, before the law of tithing, in Leviticus 27, money was used 48 times. So it's not a point that there was no money in the Old Testament. That is why people gave food. Money was mentioned 117 times in the Old Testament. And of course, money is mentioned in the 4 Gospels.